The year is 272 CE. The sun hangs low over the battlefield outside Antioch, casting long shadows across bodies that will never rise again. Queen Livia of Palmyra stands among the wreckage of her armies, surrounded by Roman legions, whose shields form an unbroken wall of crimson and gold. She is 42 years old. For 15 years, she has ruled an empire stretching from the sands of Egypt to the mountains of Anatolia. She has commanded armies. She has negotiated with emperors. She has built cities. Now she waits for death. Her generals lie broken around her. The men who swore oaths of loyalty now stare at nothing with eyes that no longer see. The air smells of copper and smoke. Her royal guard, those who survived the final desperate stand, have already been cut down. The Roman soldiers approach in formation, disciplined and unhurried. There is no mercy in their faces, but there is no cruelty either. They are simply doing what Romans have done for centuries. They are claiming what belongs to Rome. Livia expects execution. Clean, quick, a soldier's death. She has seen enough battlefields to know how these things end. The victorious general will want to make an example. Perhaps they will offer her the dignity of her own blade. Perhaps they will simply strike her down where she stands. Either way, it will be over soon. She is wrong. What she is about to experience is something Rome has perfected over the centuries. Something they do not write about in the histories you read in school. Something that happens when the cameras, if there had been cameras, would have been turned off. This is not about the battle. This is about the aftermath. The part where Rome breaks people without killing them. And if you are a woman who wore a crown, it gets worse. The centurion who reaches her first does not raise his sword. Instead, he looks her up and down with the practiced eye of a merchant evaluating livestock. He speaks to his subordinate in Latin, a language Livia understands perfectly. She has negotiated treaties with Rome. She knows their tongue. Intact. Royal blood. Palmyrene origin. Estimated value significant. He is not discussing her execution. He is discussing her price. Two more soldiers step forward and grip her arms. Not violently, but firmly. The kind of hold that makes resistance pointless. They strip away her sword belt, her dagger, the small blade she keeps hidden in her sleeve. They search her with impersonal efficiency like guards checking a prisoner. Which is, she realizes with growing horror, exactly what she has become. Her daughters stand nearby, 17 and 15 years old, still dressed in the riding clothes they wore into battle. They had begged to fight alongside their mother. Now they watch with wide eyes as Roman soldiers surround them as well. Livia tries to move toward them, but the hands on her arms tighten. A silent warning. This is when she begins to understand. Death would have been a kindness. What Rome has planned is something else entirely. The Roman general arrives on horseback armor, gleaming despite the dust of battle. Marcus Aurelius Antoninus. She has heard his name whispered in the camps. A competent commander. Not cruel by reputation, but thorough. He dismounts and approaches, studying her face for a long moment. You are Queen Livia of Palmyra. It is not a question. His Latin is crisp, educated. He does not wait for her response. Your city will fall within the week. Your armies are destroyed. Your allies have abandoned you. By the laws of Rome, by the ius gentium that governs relations between nations, you and all who follow you are now property of the Roman state. Property. The word hangs in the air like a blade. He gestures and a man in plain robes steps forward. Not a soldier, a scribe. He carries a wax tablet and stylus. He begins to write as the general speaks, recording every word with practiced efficiency. 3 female captives. Royal blood, Palmyrene, ages approximately 17 and 15. Physical condition good. Value estimate pending medical examination. Livia has negotiated enough contracts to recognize what is happening. She is being processed, cataloged, entered into an inventory. The scribe finishes writing and shows the tablet to the general, who nods approval. Take them to the command camp. Keep them separated from common prisoners. I want a physician's report before nightfall. The soldiers march them away from the battlefield. Behind them, the systematic work of conquest continues. Bodies are being sorted. Romans will be buried with honor. Palmyrene dead will be burned in mass pyres. The wounded are being separated into those who might survive and those who will not. Everything is organized, efficient. This is what Rome does. This is what makes them unstoppable. They do not simply win battles. They process the aftermath with bureaucratic precision. The march to the Roman camp takes 6 hours. Livia's feet bleed through her boots. They are given no water, no rest. The chains they place on her wrists are not tight enough to cause injury, but they are heavy enough to make every step an effort. This too, she realizes, is intentional. By the time they reach the camp, she will be exhausted, too tired to resist, too broken to think clearly. Her younger daughter stumbles. One of the soldiers catches her arm, steadying her. For a moment, Livia feels a flash of hope. Perhaps there is mercy here. Perhaps not all Romans are monsters. Then she hears what the soldier says to his companion. Careful with that one. Virgins fetch premium prices. Her daughter does not understand Latin. She does not know what was said. But Livia knows. And in that moment, she understands the full scope of what is coming. They are not being taken to execution. They are being taken to market. The Roman camp sprawls across the hills like a small city. Thousands of tents arranged in perfect geometric patterns. Smoke rises from cooking fires. Soldiers move with purposeful efficiency. Standards bearing the eagle of Rome stand at every intersection. This is not a temporary military position. This is Rome planting its flag in conquered territory. They are led past rows of prisoners. Men sit in chains waiting for judgment. Some will be sold as slaves. Some will be sent to the mines. A few, the ones who commanded armies or ruled cities, will face execution. But not here. Not yet. Rome saves its most important prisoners for spectacle. Livia and her daughters are taken to a different section of the camp. Stone buildings, not tents. Permanent structures. This camp has been here for months, perhaps years. Rome is not visiting Palmyra. Rome is staying. The physician who examines them is professional detached. He checks their teeth like a man buying horses. He asks questions about their health, their monthly cycles, any past illnesses. A female attendant is present, presumably to maintain some illusion of propriety, but she says nothing. She simply records the physician's observations on yet another wax tablet. When the examination is finished, they are taken to separate cells. Small rooms carved from stone. Each contains a wooden bench, a clay water jug, and an iron ring set into the wall. The ring is not currently being used, but its purpose is clear. This room has held prisoners before. Many prisoners. The door closes, the lock turns, and for the first time since the battle ended, Livia is alone. She drinks from the water jug. The water is clean, cool. They are keeping her healthy. This should be comforting, but it is not. Slaves who are kept healthy are slaves who will be used for something. She thinks about that iron ring in the wall. She thinks about the physician's examination. She thinks about the soldier's comment about her daughter. Property. That is what the general called her. And in Rome, property has no rights. Property cannot refuse its owner. Property cannot cry out for justice. Property simply exists to be used until it breaks. She is still trying to process this when she hears a voice from the adjacent cell. The walls are thick stone, but there is a narrow gap where they meet the ceiling. Sound carries through this gap if you speak loudly enough. You are the Queen of Palmyra. Again, not a question. The voice is female, speaking Greek with a strange accent, not Roman, not Palmyrene. I saw them bring you in. I have been here 2 years. My name is Ariana. I was Queen of Dacia until the legions came. Livia moves closer to the wall, standing on the bench to bring her mouth nearer to the gap. 2 years. They have kept you here for 2 years. A bitter laugh echoes through the stone. Not here. This is just a way station. After your triumph, after they parade you through Rome in chains, that is when the real captivity begins. I have lived 2 years in the household of Legate Valerius. I have 2 daughters, 18 and 16 now. They were married to Roman officers last spring. Married, that is what they call it, as if there was choice involved. The words hang in the darkness. Livia feels her breath catch. But you survived. You are alive. Yes, I am alive. And every morning I wake up wishing I had chosen differently. Chosen what death? Silence stretches between them. Then Ariana speaks again, and her voice is gentler now, the voice of one survivor speaking to another. Listen to me, Livia of Palmyra. What comes next will seem like the worst thing that can happen to you. The triumph, the chains, the crowds jeering as you walk through Rome. You will think that is the bottom. You will be wrong. The triumph is just theater. What happens after, when the crowds go home and the gates close? That is when you learn what it means to be property. Livia's hands grip the stone wall. Her fingernails find grooves carved into the surface. Not natural. These were made deliberately. She runs her fingers over them, tracing their shape. Letters, words, scratched into the stone by someone who came before. The light from the high window is fading, but she can make out enough to read. Latin, Greek, languages she does not recognize. But one phrase carved deeper than the others catches her eye. Helena Britanniae, year 60. They took my daughters. Do not comply. Choose death. Below it another inscription. Teuta of Illyria, year 168 BCE. They kept me 12 years. Death is mercy. And another, and another. Dozens of names, dozens of dates, centuries of captive queens all held in this same cell, all leaving warnings for whoever came next. Who was Helena? Ariana's voice comes through the wall again. A queen. Long ago. Over 200 years. Her kingdom tried to make peace with Rome. Her husband left half his lands to the emperor, hoping to buy safety for his family. Rome took everything anyway. They beat Queen Helena publicly. Her daughters, 15 and 13 years old, were assaulted by Roman soldiers in front of their own people. A message. This is what happens when you question Roman authority. And she chose death. She chose rebellion. Raised an army of 100,000. Burned 3 Roman cities to the ground. Killed 70,000 Romans. But in the end, Rome won. It always does. When the battle was lost, Helena took poison. She died on her feet with a weapon in her hand rather than live in chains. And her daughter's Ariana's silence is answer enough. But then she speaks, and her voice is hollow. They did not get the choice their mother got. They were captured alive. Roman records say they were allocated to centurions as rewards. The word they use is allocated. Like distributing grain or equipment, they lasted 3 years. One killed herself. The other died in childbirth. These are not my words. These are Roman military records. They write these things down. They keep accounts. Livia stares at the names carved into her cell wall. Hundreds of women. Hundreds of warnings. And below all of them, scratched in fresher stone, recent enough that the edges are still sharp. Remember their names. They tried to erase us. Do not let them forget we existed. That night, food arrives. Bread, cheese, dried fruit. More than a common prisoner would receive. They are maintaining her value. In the morning, she knows the march to Rome will begin. The triumph will be prepared. And after that, after the crowds and the chains and the humiliation, will come something worse. She thinks about Helena's choice. Poison and defiance. Death on her own terms. She thinks about Ariana's fate. 2 years of survival that feels like death stretched across time. She thinks about her daughters sleeping in cells nearby, not yet understanding what they have become. And she makes a decision that will haunt her for the next 18 years. She will not choose death. Not yet. Not while her daughters still breathe. If there is any chance, however small, that compliance might protect them, she will take it. She will bend. She will break if she must. But she will keep them alive. This is the first mistake that every captive queen makes. The belief that cooperation might earn mercy. The hope that Rome rewards those who do not resist. Ariana knows this. Helena knew this. Every name carved into that wall learned this truth too late. Rome does not reward compliance. Rome simply takes longer to destroy those who cooperate. The end is the same. The only choice is whether you walk to it with dignity or crawl to it in pieces. But Livia does not know this yet. So when morning comes and the guards arrive to begin the journey to Rome, she goes quietly. She does not resist when they bind her hands. She does not cry out when they separate her from her daughters. She keeps her face composed and her spine straight. She still believes she can negotiate this. She still believes there are rules. She still believes Rome has mercy. She will learn. The journey to Rome takes 43 days. They travel in a convoy of wagons and mounted soldiers moving along Roman roads that cut through the landscape with geometric precision. Every 20 miles they stop at a way station. Every evening, Livia and her daughters are placed in stone cells similar to the one in Antioch. They are given food. They are given water. They are kept clean and healthy. Their value must be maintained. On the 37th day, they cross into Italia. The landscape changes. Olive groves and vineyards replace the arid hills of the east. Towns become cities. Traffic increases, more soldiers, more merchants, more signs of the vast machinery that makes Rome possible. On the 40th day, they see the city for the first time. It sprawls across 7 hills larger than any city Livia has ever seen. Aqueducts stride across the countryside like the legs of giants. The walls rise higher than seems possible, enclosing a space that could swallow Palmyra 10 times over. Even from miles away, she can see the great monuments rising above the rooftops. The Colosseum, the Circus Maximus, the temples whose names she has heard but never seen. This is the heart of the empire that conquered her world, and somewhere in that vast city, her fate is already being decided. They do not enter Rome immediately. The convoy stops at a military camp outside the city walls. This is where the final preparations will be made. Livia is separated from her daughters and taken to a different building. Stone walls, no windows. The door locks from the outside. A woman enters, not a slave. Her clothing marks her as Roman nobility, though not the highest rank. She carries herself with the confidence of someone performing a familiar task. Behind her, 2 younger women carry basins of water and folded cloth. My name is Marcella. I have been assigned to prepare you for the triumph. Her Latin is educated precise. She speaks to Livia as one might speak to a child who needs simple instructions. You will be bathed. Your hair will be arranged in traditional Palmyrene style. You will be dressed in your finest robes, the ones that mark you as royalty. You will wear your jewels. You will be made beautiful. Livia stares at her. Why? Because the emperor wishes Rome to see what it has conquered. A barbarian queen in chains is just another prisoner, but a queen in full regalia, still beautiful, still proud, now brought low. That is a message. That is power made visible. The women begin their work. They are not cruel, but they are not gentle. This is a job. Livia is a task to be completed. They scrub her skin with oils that smell of lavender and rose. They work scented ointment into her hair. They paint her face with cosmetics she has not worn since the days before the war. When they finish, she looks like a queen again. Then they bring the chains. These are not iron. These are gold. Heavy beaten gold worked into links thick as a man's thumb. The weight is enormous. When they drape the chains across her shoulders and attach them to iron cuffs at her wrists, she staggers. She cannot stand upright under this weight. Marcella nods approval. Perfect. You will need help walking. Guards will support you. The crowd must see the burden. They must understand that even your wealth has become an instrument of your bondage. She pauses, and for just a moment, something flickers across her face. Not quite sympathy, perhaps recognition of what is about to happen. When she speaks again, her voice is quieter. If you survive tomorrow, do whatever they tell you. Do not resist. Women who resist do not last long in Rome. What happens after the triumph? Marcella looks away. That is not for me to say. But the legate who petitioned for your allocation is named Claudius, Tribune Marcus Claudius. He is not by reputation a cruel man. If you must belong to someone, there are worse fates. Belong. The word is chosen carefully. Not serve, not work for. Belong. Livia opens her mouth to ask more, but Marcella is already leaving. The 2 younger women follow, taking the basins and cloth. The door closes. The lock turns. That night, Livia does not sleep. She sits on the stone bench, feeling the weight of golden chains that will not be removed until tomorrow's spectacle is finished. Through the walls, she can hear sounds. Other prisoners. Guards talking. Somewhere in the distance, the noise of Rome itself, a constant murmur of humanity pressed together in numbers too vast to comprehend. She thinks about what Marcella said. Allocated. As if Livia is equipment being distributed according to military regulation. As if 18 years of ruling an empire, of commanding armies, of negotiating with kings has been reduced to a line item on a requisition form. She thinks about her daughters. Are they being prepared as well? Are they being told the same things? Do they understand yet what is coming? Morning arrives too soon. The guards come before dawn. They lead her out of the cell through corridors lit by oil lamps upstairs that climb toward ground level. She can hear the city now louder than before. Voices, thousands of them, tens of thousands. The triumph begins at sunrise and Rome has been waiting. They take her to a courtyard where other prisoners are being assembled. She sees her daughters also dressed in Palmyrene robes, also wearing chains. She tries to move toward them, but guards block her path. Not yet. Everything has its order. Everything follows procedure. A centurion reads from a scroll. Names, crimes, sentences. When he reaches Livia, his voice carries across the courtyard. Livia of Palmyra. Rebellion against Roman authority. Conquered by Emperor Aurelian in year 272 of the Common Era. Sentenced to participate in triumph, followed by allocation per military regulations. He rolls up the scroll and nods to the guards. The procession begins to form. Musicians at the front, then carts carrying paintings of conquered cities, then captured treasures, then animals. Lions bears creatures from the farthest edges of the empire, all led in chains. And then the prisoners. Livia is placed at the front of the captive group. Her daughters walk behind her. The weight of the golden chains makes walking almost impossible. Two guards walk beside her, their hands under her arms supporting much of the weight. Without them, she would collapse within minutes. The gates open. The sound hits like a physical wave. 50,000 voices, maybe more, all raised at once, cheering, jeering, celebrating. She cannot see them yet. The procession is still in shadow, but she can hear them. Rome is waiting. They march through the gates and into sunlight. The street ahead stretches into the distance, lined on both sides with crowds pressed so tightly together that individual faces blur into a single mass of humanity. Buildings rise on either side, 3 and 4 stories tall, and every window is filled with people looking down. The noise is constant, overwhelming. She has never heard anything like this. She has never imagined this many people could exist in one place. The procession begins to move. The first hour is the worst. Her feet, unused to the rough paving stones, begin to bleed within the first mile. The chains cut into her shoulders despite the padding they place beneath the links. The sun climbs higher and the day grows hot. Sweat runs down her face, ruining the careful cosmetics. But she cannot wipe it away. Her hands are chained. The crowd throws things. Rotten fruit, vegetables. Once a rock that strikes her shoulder hard enough to leave a bruise. The guards do nothing to stop it. This is part of the spectacle. This is what the crowd came to see. She hears the comments shouted in Latin. She understands perfectly. Look at the barbarian queen. Where is your empire now? My son died fighting your armies. How does it feel to know it was for nothing and worse? Comments about her body, about what they would do if given the chance, about what will be done to her. The crowd knows. Everyone knows. This is not secret. This is policy. By the third hour, her daughters are crying. She can hear them behind her, trying to be quiet, failing. The younger one stumbles. A guard catches her, keeps her moving. No one is allowed to stop. The procession must maintain its pace. 4 kilometers through the heart of Rome. It will take all day. They pass through the Forum. The crowd here is even larger, packed into the open space between temples and government buildings. Officials watch from raised platforms. Senators in their white togas. Wealthy merchants. Foreign ambassadors who need to see this, who need to understand what happens to those who challenge Rome. And there on the highest platform, wearing the purple of imperial authority, is Emperor Aurelian himself. The procession slows as it passes before him. This is the moment the emperor will decide. Life or death, use or execution. His face is distant, impossible to read. He watches Livia struggle under the weight of golden chains. He sees her daughters weeping behind her. He observes it all with the detached interest of a man watching an entertainment designed for his pleasure. He raises one hand, a gesture. Guards respond immediately, directing the procession to continue. Not toward the prison, toward the continuation of the route. Livia is not being led aside. She is not being taken to the Mamertine. She is going to survive this. She should feel relief. She does not. Because now she knows for certain that death was never the plan. Whatever comes next, it will be worse than anything she has imagined. The procession winds up the Capitoline Hill, the final stretch. The crowd here is different, more elite, quieter. They watch with the calculating interest of people who understand what they are seeing. This is not entertainment for them. This is education. This is a demonstration of power and process. The march ends at the Temple of Jupiter. The crowd falls silent as the emperor arrives in his golden chariot. He dismounts and climbs the temple steps. A priest emerges, performs a ritual, blesses the triumph. The emperor turns to face the crowd. Rome has conquered Palmyra. Let all the world see what becomes of those who challenge our authority. He gestures toward Livia. Two guards force her to her knees. The golden chains pool around her like spilled wealth. She kneels there in front of 50,000 people while the emperor pronounces her fate. This woman called herself a queen. She commanded armies. She thought herself our equal. Today she kneels before Rome. Today she learns that there is only one power in this world, and you are looking at it. He pauses, letting the silence build. She will not be executed. Death is too easy. Instead, she will live. She will live as a monument to Roman mercy. She will live so that all may see what becomes of pride. Tribune Marcus Claudius has petitioned for allocation rights. Petition granted. Take her. The crowd erupts, cheering, applause. They are celebrating her survival as if it is a gift, as if the emperor has shown great kindness. Livia remains on her knees, understanding now what Marcella tried to warn her about. Understanding what the word allocated really means. She has been sold. No, not sold, given away. Allocated like equipment, like a tent or a wagon or a spare sword. She is property being transferred from one owner to another. And it is all legal, all proper, all recorded by scribes who will enter this transaction into official records. Guards lift her to her feet. The golden chains are finally removed. For a moment, she feels light, almost able to float. Then iron manacles are locked onto her wrists. These are not for show. These are functional. These will stay on. She is led away from the temple, away from the crowd, down a side street where the noise begins to fade. Her daughters are brought as well, also in iron manacles now. They walk through quieter neighborhoods away from the celebration toward whatever comes next. They arrive at a building complex near the edge of the city, military quarters, officers' housing. The guards lead them through a gate and into a courtyard. Other people are here, soldiers, servants, a woman who might be a housekeeper. They all stop and stare as the prisoners are brought in. A man emerges from one of the buildings, 40 years old perhaps, dark hair graying at the temples, wearing a tribune's uniform, but without the formal armor of the triumph. He walks toward them with the confident stride of someone moving through space he owns. Tribune Marcus Claudius. This is his household, and as of today, Livia belongs to him. He stops in front of her and studies her face for a long moment. His expression is neutral, not cruel, not kind, just evaluating. You speak Latin, it is not a question. Her trial records would have made this clear. Yes. Good. That will make things simpler. You will live here in my household. Your daughters will remain with you until suitable marriages can be arranged. You will be treated well as long as you comply with expectations. Do you understand? What are the expectations? He looks at her with something that might be surprise, as if he had not expected her to ask, as if the question itself reveals how little she understands. You are mine now, legally, officially. The emperor himself signed the allocation papers. You belong to my household in the same way that furniture belongs to a household. You will serve my needs. All of them. When I require your presence, you will come. When I give an instruction, you will obey. This is not negotiable. This is not a conversation. This is simply how things are. He pauses and his voice softens slightly. But I am not a cruel man. I have no interest in breaking you. Comply and your life here will be tolerable. Resist and I will have you reclassified as common property. Your daughters as well. Do you understand the difference? She does. Common property means the barracks, means being shared among soldiers, means what happened to Helena's daughters. I understand. Good. He turns to a servant. Take them to the quarters I prepared. Give them food and water. Let them rest. Tomorrow we begin establishing routine. The servant leads them away, through corridors, upstairs, to a set of rooms that would be comfortable if they were not a prison. There are beds, windows that look out onto the courtyard, a small table with chairs. It could almost be a guest room, except the door locks from the outside. That night, Livia sits with her daughters and tries to explain what has happened, tries to make them understand that cooperation is survival, tries to prepare them for what is coming. They cry. She does not. She has no tears left. There is only the cold understanding that this is the beginning, not the end. Around midnight, she hears footsteps in the corridor, a key turning in the lock. The door opens. Claudius stands in the doorway. Behind him, the corridor is empty. No guards, no witnesses, just him and the woman he now owns. Come with me. It is not a request. She stands. Her daughters start to rise as well, but Claudius shakes his head. Not them. Not tonight. Just you. She follows him through the dark corridors. He does not speak, does not explain. There is no need. She knows where they are going and why. This is the reality that Marcella tried to warn her about. This is what comes after the triumph when the crowds go home and the gates close. He leads her to his private chambers. The room is large, well appointed. There is a desk with scrolls and writing implements, a cabinet with wine and cups, and against the far wall a bed. He closes the door. The lock clicks. This is when she makes her second mistake. This is when she tries to negotiate. Please, my daughters, if I do this, if I comply, will you protect them? Will you ensure they are married to decent men who will not harm them? Claudius looks at her with something like pity. That was already going to happen. Your cooperation does not earn you favors. It simply prevents punishment. Do you see the difference? I do not reward obedience. I punish disobedience. Everything else is just the natural state of affairs. He begins removing his uniform. His movements are casual, unhurried. He is not a cruel man. That is what he said. And perhaps by his standards it is true. He will not beat her. He will not deliberately cause pain. He will simply use what belongs to him. And this is the truth that Ariana tried to explain, that Helena understood 200 years ago, that every name carved into that cell wall learned the same way. Compliance does not save you. It just determines how long the breaking takes. Livia closes her eyes, and for the first time since the battle, she prays. Not to her gods, they have abandoned her, not to Roman gods, they do not care. She prays to nothing at all, to the empty darkness behind her eyelids, for the strength to survive this night and all the nights that will follow. Outside, Rome sleeps. The triumph is over. The crowds have gone home. The glory and celebration have faded into memory. And in the quiet darkness of a tribune's chamber, the real conquest begins. This is what Roman soldiers did to queens after victory. Not in the bright light of day, not in the grand spectacle of triumph, but in the dark, in the quiet, in the places history refuses to write about. This is the part they erased. Time becomes difficult to measure when you have no freedom. Days blend into weeks. Weeks blur into months. Livia marks the passage of time by small changes, the seasons shifting outside her window, her daughters' faces losing the softness of youth, the gray appearing in her own hair when she catches her reflection in polished metal. Year one passes, then year two. She learns the routine of the household. Claudius is, as he claimed, not a cruel master by Roman standards. He does not beat her, he does not starve her, he provides clothing appropriate to her station as a former queen living in a Roman household. Servants treat her with cautious respect, unsure how to categorize someone who is simultaneously property and royalty. But she is never free, not for one moment. Every day begins when she is summoned. Every night ends when she is dismissed. In between, she exists in a state of permanent waiting, waiting to be called, waiting to be used, waiting for the moment when Claudius tires of her and she is transferred to someone else, or worse, reclassified as common property. Her daughters are married in the second year. The elder to a centurion named Gaius, 43 years old, recently promoted. The younger to a junior officer named Titus, 37, from a minor patrician family. These are not negotiations. These are announcements. The girls are told who their husbands will be. They are given no choice. Livia is allowed to attend both ceremonies. She stands in the back of the room wearing the plain dress of a household servant, watching her daughters repeat vows they do not mean to men they did not choose. The weddings are small, private, just family and close associates. No grand celebration. These girls are the daughters of a conquered queen. Their value is in their bloodline being absorbed into Roman families, not in public spectacle. After the ceremonies, she sees her daughters less frequently. They live in their husbands' households now. Sometimes she is permitted to visit. These visits are supervised. A servant always accompanies her, presumably to ensure she does not try to escape or communicate anything inappropriate. During one visit, her elder daughter takes her hand and squeezes it tightly. Her eyes are desperate. Mother, he is not cruel. I am learning to manage. The days are tolerable. She is lying. Livia knows she is lying, but there is nothing to be done. They are both trapped in webs, neither can escape. So Livia squeezes back and returns a lie. I am glad. You are doing well. I am proud of you. Two captive women pretending survival is the same as living. In year 3, something changes. Claudius begins bringing her to dinner parties, not as a guest, as a display. He seats her at the table dressed in Palmyrene robes that mark her foreign origin and introduces her to other officers and their families. This is Livia of Palmyra. She was a queen before the emperor's mercy brought her to Rome. The guests stare. They ask questions. What was it like to rule an empire? How does it feel to live in Rome now? Do you miss your homeland? She answers carefully, always aware that Claudius is listening, always calibrating her responses to show proper gratitude for Roman civilization. One guest, a legate named Valerius, leans close during the meal. Claudius, you must lend her to me for next month's gathering. My colleagues would pay good money to dine with a genuine barbarian queen. Claudius considers this. He looks at Livia, evaluating, calculating. Perhaps. We can discuss terms. She is not consulted. Her opinion is not requested. She is property being discussed by her owners, no different than a horse or a prize hunting dog. This is how she lives now. This is what the next decade will bring. Being displayed, being discussed, being loaned out to other households when her owner finds it advantageous. In year 5, her elder daughter dies in childbirth. The baby survives. A boy. He is given a Roman name. He will be raised in his father's household, learning Latin and Roman customs, taught to honor the empire that conquered his grandmother's kingdom. He will never know Palmyra. He will never speak his grandmother's language. He will be Roman in every way that matters. Livia is not permitted to attend the funeral. She learns of her daughter's death 3 days after it happens, when Claudius mentions it casually over breakfast. Your daughter died. The child lives. Thought you should know. He returns to his meal as if he has just commented on the weather. That night, alone in her quarters, Livia finally allows herself to cry. Not for the first time since her capture, but for the first time in years. She has been so focused on survival, on maintaining composure, on protecting her surviving daughter, that she forgot she was allowed to grieve. She cries for hours. No one comes to check on her. No one comforts her. Why would they? Property does not need comfort. Property just needs to function. In year 7, Claudius is promoted. He becomes a legate, given command of a full legion. The household moves to a larger villa on the outskirts of Rome. More servants, more wealth, more prestige. And Livia, now 49 years old, moves with them. Still property, still owned, still waiting. Her surviving daughter visits when she can. She has 3 children now, 2 boys and a girl. The children call Livia grandmother, but they say it in Latin, not Palmyrene. They know she was a queen once, but it means nothing to them. She is just an old woman in their father's friend's household. A curiosity, a relic of a war that ended before they were born. During one visit, her daughter whispers something in Palmyrene. The first words in their native language Livia has heard in years. I remember, Father. I remember the palace. Sometimes in dreams I am still there. Livia takes her hand. Hold on to those dreams. They cannot take those from you. But she is wrong. Time takes them. Within a few more years, her daughter's memories will fade. The language will slip away, forgotten from disuse. The next generation will know nothing of Palmyra except what they read in Roman histories. And Roman histories do not write about queens as people. They write about queens as obstacles that were overcome, problems that were solved, trophies that were claimed. In year 10, there is an incident, a slave rebellion in one of the provinces, not large, not significant in the scope of Roman history, but it makes Claudius nervous. He begins wondering if having a conquered queen in his household might become a liability. What if there is an uprising? What if conquered peoples decide to make Livia a symbol? He discusses this with other officers during a dinner. Livia is present, serving wine, listening. Perhaps it is time to marry her off, get her into some remote household where she cannot become a focal point for unrest. Another officer laughs. Who would marry a woman that age? She is 50 now. Past childbearing, past usefulness. Just execute her and be done with it. Claudius shakes his head. The emperor allocated her to me personally. I cannot simply dispose of imperial property without permission, but I can transfer her to someone else's household, someone in the provinces, somewhere she will be forgotten. Livia continues pouring wine as they discuss her future. She keeps her face neutral, her hands steady, but inside she is calculating. After 10 years, she has learned how Roman households work. She has learned who to befriend among the servants. She has learned where valuables are kept. She has learned the routines of the guards. She could escape. She has had opportunities, but she has never taken them because her daughter was still in Rome, still vulnerable, still a hostage to ensure Livia's compliance. But now with her daughter married and established with grandchildren who barely know her, what is left to protect? If Claudius transfers her to some remote province, she will never see her family again anyway. That night she makes a decision, not escape, that would endanger her daughter, but something else, something that has been carved into her mind since the first night she spent in that cell in Antioch. She will leave a record. Over the next week, she steals small pieces of metal from the household, a bent nail, a broken stylus, anything that can be sharpened into a tool for carving. She hides them in her quarters, and late at night when the household sleeps, she begins scratching into the wooden bed frame, into the stone windowsill, anywhere she can leave marks that might survive. Livia of Palmyra, ruled 15 years, conquered by Rome 272 C, held captive 18 years. My empire is gone. My daughter is gone. But I was here. I existed. Do not forget us. She carves in Latin, Greek, and Palmyrene. Triple redundancy. Someone someday might find these words, might understand what happened in the quiet darkness of Roman households, might learn what history refuses to write. In year 12, Claudius finally arranges her transfer. She is to be moved to a household in Gaul, a junior officer who owes Claudius a favor. The transfer papers are drawn up. Scribes record the transaction. Everything is legal. Everything is proper. But before the transfer can happen, something unexpected occurs. Claudius dies. Not dramatically, not in battle. He simply falls ill with a fever that will not break. Within a week, he is dead. This creates a problem. Livia is property of his estate, but the estate is inherited by his son, a young man who has no interest in maintaining his father's arrangements. He looks at the household accounts and sees a 54-year-old woman who costs money to maintain and provides no obvious benefit. He decides to promote her. This is how Livia, queen of Palmyra, who once commanded armies and negotiated with emperors, ends up in a slave market in Rome. She stands on a wooden platform in the forum while an auctioneer describes her history to potential buyers. Former queen, educated, speaks Latin, Greek, and Palmyrene, age 54, good health for her years, suitable for household management or decorative purposes. The bidding is not enthusiastic. She is old. Her value is mainly novelty, a conversation piece. Look at my household, I own a genuine barbarian queen. She sells for 6,000 denarii, less than the cost of a good horse. The buyer is a merchant who made his fortune trading grain. He wants her for his wife, who collects exotic things. And so Livia spends the next 3 years in a different household, this time treated more like a pet than a person. The merchant's wife parades her at gatherings, introduces her to friends, asks her to tell stories about ruling Palmyra. Livia performs. She has learned that performing is survival, but her health is failing now. 18 years of captivity, of stress, of constant vigilance have worn her body down. She develops a cough that will not go away, pains in her joints that make walking difficult. She is dying slowly but inevitably. In year 15, she is sold again. The merchant's wife has grown bored with her. This time she is purchased by a retired soldier who wants a household manager, someone educated who can run his affairs while he drinks wine and remembers old campaigns. This, oddly, is the closest she comes to peace. The old soldier, a former centurion named Lucius, treats her with absent-minded respect. He gives her actual responsibilities, managing servants, overseeing accounts. She is still property, but at least she is useful property. At least she has something to do besides wait. She almost never sees her daughter now. The girl, no longer a girl, but a woman of 33, has her own life, her own family. She writes occasionally, brief letters that say little of substance. The grandchildren are well. The weather is pleasant. She hopes Livia is treated kindly. Between the lines, Livia reads the truth. Her daughter has learned to stop hoping, has learned to accept the reality of their situation, has learned that survival means not thinking too much about what was lost. In year 18, Livia wakes one morning and knows it is her last. She can feel it in her bones. The cough has been getting worse. Blood appeared last week. Her body is shutting down. She asks Lucius for permission to be taken to the forum one final time. He grants it, perhaps sensing what she does not say. A servant accompanies her, helping her walk on legs that barely support her weight. They go to the old section where stone buildings from the earliest days of Rome still stand, where scratches and carvings from centuries of history mark every surface. Livia finds a quiet corner, a wall that might stand for another 100 years, another 500, perhaps forever. With a piece of metal she palmed from Lucius's workshop, she scratches into the stone. Her hand shakes. The letters are uneven, but they are legible. Queen Livia of Palmyra, born free, died property, remember us. She finishes just as her strength gives out. The servant catches her, helps her to a bench. They rest there for a while, an old woman and a young slave both trapped in the machinery of Rome. That night, Livia dies in her sleep. Lucius, who despite everything had developed a fondness for the educated foreign woman who managed his household so efficiently, pays for a modest burial. She is laid to rest in a common cemetery on the outskirts of Rome. Her tombstone reads Livia, faithful servant, nothing about Palmyra, nothing about the empire she built, nothing about the 15 years she ruled before Rome came, just those two words and the dates of her service in a Roman household. Her daughter attends the burial with two of her children. They stand in the rain watching strangers lower the body into the ground, and then they leave. They do not return. There is no point. The past is past. They are Roman now. It is safer that way. Years later, after this daughter dies and is buried with honor as the matriarch of a respected Roman family, her grandchildren go through her possessions. They find a small wooden box hidden at the back of a cabinet. Inside are three things: a scrap of fabric in Palmyrene style, a bent nail with scratches on it that might be writing, and a folded piece of papyrus with a single sentence in a language none of them can read. They throw it all away. It means nothing to them. They are Roman. Why would they keep reminders of barbarian ancestors? This is how empires erase people. Not with swords, not with fire, but with time, with assimilation, with the slow grinding away of memory until nothing remains but stone inscriptions that no one bothers to read. But here is what Rome could not erase, what no empire can fully destroy. The stones remember. In Palmyra, beneath centuries of sand, archaeologists found palace ruins. In Rome, carved into forgotten walls, they found names. In Pompeii, preserved by volcanic ash, they found the holding cells. In Vindolanda, sealed in mud, they found the letters between officers discussing how to allocate conquered women. The stones remember what the scrolls refused to write. And eventually, centuries later, people started reading those stones, started asking questions, started understanding what really happened after the triumphs ended and the crowds went home. In 410 CE, 138 years after Livia's death, Rome itself fell to barbarian conquest. The Visigoths sacked the Eternal City, and Roman women, daughters of senators and patricians, learned what it felt like to be conquered, learned what it meant to be allocated, learned what their ancestors had done to queens from Palmyra and Britannia and Dacia and 100 other places. The system Rome perfected, the machinery of humiliation and ownership, was turned against them. Poetic justice, perhaps. But it came too late for Livia, too late for her daughters, too late for the thousands of other women whose names were carved into cell walls and then forgotten. This is what they don't teach you about Roman glory. This is what gets left out of the histories you read in school. The triumphs celebrated in ancient texts were just theater. The real conquest happened in the darkness, in the quiet, in the places where no one was watching and no one would write it down. Roman soldiers did not simply defeat queens. They broke them, systematically, legally, with the full support of laws and customs and an empire that believed conquered people were property to be distributed according to regulations. And the worst part is that Rome was not unique. Rome was just better at it than most, better at organizing, better at recording, better at turning cruelty into bureaucracy. Every empire does this. Every conqueror breaks the conquered. Rome simply perfected the process. The stones remember. The walls of the Mamertine prison still stand in Rome today. You can visit them. You can see the hole in the floor where prisoners were lowered into darkness. You can run your fingers over the scratches in the walls, made by fingernails, trying desperately to find purchase in stone. And if you look closely enough in quiet corners, where tourists do not usually go, you can still find the names. Carved by women who refuse to let history erase them completely. Women who scratch their existence into stone because stone outlasts empires. Helena of Britannia, Teuta of Illyria, Ariana of Dacia, Livia of Palmyra, and hundreds more. Queens who ruled, queens who fought, queens who lost, queens who survived or did not, but who left their marks either way. Remember us, the stones say. We were here, we existed. We were more than trophies, more than property, more than footnotes in your histories. We were queens, and we will not be forgotten.